make it not look too chaotic, but the reality is it's not.
Wonderful.
And is there already a mend in them? Or?
Yeah, I've already fixed them once.
Okay.
Both the heels are already reinforced, and now there's new holes.
Okay, wonderful. So you have some experience with this technique?
Yeah, it's just making the knit stitches again.
Okay.
And knitting, but with a needle instead of two sticks.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks, Yasha. Would you like to share your name? No.
Hi, I'm Melissa, and I had lunch today, and then I stopped at a favorite shop and bought a piece of fabric that's secondhand.
Okay.
And I'm going to make it into, I forget the name of that Japanese bag, you turn into a purse. There's a name, but I thought I would turn that into that today.
Okay.
And then something, I wasn't into something else.
Okay, great. Thanks, Melissa.
I'm Molly Claire, and I brought a jean jacket that has really, really torn cuffs.
Oh, yeah. Okay, nice. Okay. Okay. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Maybe we can also show these. So this is another ongoing project that Selina and I are working on. This is a sample piece from a much larger work whereby we wove a cotton cloth and then cut holes in it intentionally so that we could have different people mend the holes, and thus creating a large work that demonstrates all of the different the different shapes that mending can take, and new to mending or familiar with mending alike. It's a special project to contribute to, so that's also an option if you're interested in either trying on a sample piece. I think there's one near you, or we can take down this work and you can get us started. And that's kind of another part of this mending series that is really nice to ruminate on, is the forward-thinking motions of mending. So, the first part of wearable memory, looking back into the past and the sort of tangible, emotional, psychological memories that we have in objects and in wearable objects or clothing in particular. We do a lot of nostalgic thinking in our daily lives as well, but mending is also a hopeful practice of envisioning a future with these objects that maybe didn't have one before you'd interacted with them. So this project is ongoing and unfinished. We have no idea yet what shape it will take, but that's something that we're happy to explore together today as well. I think what we'll do is do some demonstrations. It sounds like people have come to the table with a few different material needs. There's some sewing, there's some darning, there's some jean repair, and otherwise just kind of playful experimentation. So maybe what we'll do is do a demonstration on darning. And then from there, we'll do more one-on-ones, and Selina and I can walk around and just talk to you individually about your projects. And for those who are online, we'll try to make it visible and available as well. And then, we'll just kind of get working. And that's great. Thanks. Great. And just in case, so if you need to bring materials home with you, if you don't finish it today, then that's fine as well. These are things that we'll happily share. Okay, so maybe I'll start with you. And these are so fascinating. I've yet to see dog hair socks, so I'm curious to touch them and maybe even smell them.
They drive my dog crazy.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
There's also these, which are dog hair slippers.
Oh,
wow.
okay.
They're now covered in the bottom of my bag.
And they've been felted on top, or is that just a loose knit? Yeah.
These aren't mine.
Okay.
So I'm not entirely sure, but there's holes in this as well.
So some dog in Estonia has kindly lent their.
I wish I could remember the names, the
fur.
specific kinds of dogs, but I mean, I didn't buy them, so I don't remember the name, but I know this is one old lady who cuts the yarn, cuts the hair, spins the yarn, then knits them into socks, and then she sells them for like 12 euros each.
Wow.
Like next to nothing.
And for those who don't know much about the creation of yarn, spinning yarn to create thread is laborious at best. So 12 euros is next to none. Okay, this is fascinating. So you've managed to already do some Swiss darning,
Yes.
which is the technique required for recreating knit stitches. And you've used, what did you use to do the Swiss darning?
This stuff, which is a wool nylon.
Okay.
Yeah, nylon mix. I don't know what percentage, but it's a little harder wearing than just straight up dog hair, which wears through.
Great. So it looks like you know what you're doing, and that's really great. I'd be happy to. Yeah, I think you've brought up an interesting point, which is important to know while mending. If possible, if you can mend using the material that the fabric is made out of, that's really ideal. So an example would be if you had a wool sweater, it's best to mend with wool because wool shrinks and expands. Your mend will respond in the same way. And similarly with cotton and synthetic fibers. So
I consciously chose to use this yarn rather than 100% wool because I knew that it would last longer.
Yeah.
The fix would last longer.
Great. Good for you. So you've brought your materials and you've got your item. So you should just feel really comfortable to get started. Yeah, all good. The fibers will shed. Pamela, how are you doing? Good.
I'm here for an hour,
Yeah.
but I want to finish it. So if I don't finish it now, I do it and give you back, or I keep
Sure,
it?
we could arrange for a meetup at some point if you'd like to finish this at home and then.
Yeah, I'll be coming to the symposium.
Sure, that'd be great. Yeah. So what you'll see, I mean, it sounds like you know a little bit about
No, but it's nice.
textiles.
I want to
Okay,
know
great.
from you.
So we created this cloth using a really thick cotton yarn
I could see that.
so that it's very visible for beginners and they might better understand. When you're weaving, you're essentially recreating, when you're darning, you're essentially recreating a weave, which involves a warp running vertical and a weft running horizontal. So this is the warp and this is the weft. And these holes we have sewn so that they're fortified. It's not going to fall apart. And you can see here someone did a really nice job. They started by doing a running stitch along the outside edge and then using two different colors to really clearly indicate the warp and the weft threads. This is a thicker cotton than this one that you've chosen here.
No, it was here. I have.
Oh, it was already there.
Yeah.
So
Take another one.
yeah, there's a pile of them over here. That might be a good place to start, but really feel free to, thinner ones will work. They'll just kind of behave a little bit differently. And if this puckers or stretches or bends, it's not an issue.
Okay.
Do you want to work on this sample or would you like to contribute to the bigger one?
I see the bigger one, but that's the whole piece, right?
Yeah, that's right. But it's really up to you. If you want to start here, you can do that. It's up to you.
Finish within an hour, that one? That's my question.
It's a lot more to take home if
Yeah.
you aren't able to
Or
finish
will
it.
you be getting it every day here?
No, this work isn't actually a part of this exhibition.
Okay.
It's just something we brought along to show and yeah, it's up to you. But the other option is when Selina and I actually get around to planning the community event, we can let you know.
Yeah, that'll be really great.
And then,
Yeah,
and then you'd be more than welcome to do that. Okay,
So today, let's work on this one. Maybe
Perfect.
I'll do this patch or this, any of these.
however you feel is best, yeah. We have lots of different needle types.
Yeah.
They're in the middle of the room or the table here.
I don't know if I don't know enough to teach.
Okay, you know, better than
I have done it.
from 0 to some scale is fine.
0 to 2 maybe.
But yeah, I definitely know somebody.
There you go.
Yeah.
I have one. I just haven't touched it for 10 years.
So you might want to choose a needle
I guess
like
this
this.
is fine,
So
yeah.
darning needles have less of a pointy end,
Okay.
so they're not going to get caught in the fabrics as you darn. So they're blunt on the end. This one has a really thick eye hole, which means you can pass through a thicker yarn. When you have a chunky piece like this, sometimes it gets a little bit finicky, like you have to kind of force its way through, but the blunt end and the thicker eye will make it easier for you. So this one I'll leave with you as well. It's got a pointier end here.
Yeah.
So you can choose whichever one you would prefer, and you can try both.
And I remembered with this one, it helped to have like a bigger eye.
Yeah, that's what we've got.
Yeah. Should I do the demo on the camera? Maybe,
Yeah,
for
I think
this?
that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then I can sign up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we're
This is
ready.
Yeah,
the
this is
thinner. Yeah.
how this eye taking?
This is good. I'll just do it here. Yeah. Okay, this is great. Thanks for anyone online. This is for you, but also for anyone who wants to learn a very traditional kind of woven darning technique. I just have a pair of socks with a tiny hole. I chose these socks just because I knew that it would be a quick hole to fix, so I can show you the steps relatively quickly. When you're darning a sock, you often want a surface that you can kind of do it against. So this is what's called a darning mushroom. There's also different versions of this that look more like an egg. If you don't have one of these, you can definitely use a light bulb, or I often use a water bottle. So something that'll just give you a surface to work against so you're not sewing your sock together. So when putting that in your sock, got your hole right on the surface, and I'm gonna do this in 2 colors so it's really easy to see what I'm doing. With anybody with embroidery knowledge, what you'll start by doing is a running stitch. And you'll want to start about, I usually do a pinky finger away from the hole in each direction. So you kind of like find that distance in the corner. And you'll do a running stitch. So that just involves picking up the fabric kind of in equidistant stitches and pulling through. And I usually just leave a tail, but there are different techniques. Some people are not people. And in the second row, you're going to repeat yourself, but you're going to want to kind of match the stitches from the previous row as closely as possible. But, to the untrained hand, this does take time. So just kind of get lost in the repetition. And there are infinite ways to do this type of mend. This is just the one that I feel most comfortable with and most comfortable teaching. And what you also want to make sure is that the tail of your thread is always coming out, so it doesn't get stuck in your mend. Yeah, I definitely do, Yasha. Sorry, I've moved a bit. So when you reach the hole, what you'll do is kind of just create a float around it. So that's normal. You'll just have these kind of like longer threads that go cover the hole.
I thought there were more people coming, so I was going to spread out. But I thought there were too, but I guess we're getting the celebrity.
Yeah, the intimate mending group.
My mom signed up, but they just started in June. Yes. Sort of pandemic work and also their work over the last 40 years.
Okay, so that's pretty much step one. And you'll end up just leaving a tail. So take your time doing this. That's your first step. So I'll get my needle set up for the second color and come back to you in a bit. Okay.
If ever you do want to continue with your gene mending, do you have a sewing machine at home?
I do, but it's a little bit temperamental and elderly.
Yeah. Mine's the same, but what I found really helpful was to go get that jean backing.
Okay.
It's like a stiffer material that it almost looks like one of those adhesives that you put on to put a patch.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
And then we used thread that matched jean colors, but we found like a thicker thread, so that was helpful
like the
as
kind
well.
of thread you would use to actually sew denim.
Almost industrial, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, please run another jean mending.
Yeah, that was a really good one. People have a lot of holes in their jeans, yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
I think it's a constant, I know for me, it's a constant source of frustration is that, like, I'm sure this happens to all sorts of people, but I find that a lot of women find that their jeans wear
Yes, yeah. Yeah.
Like, no matter what kind of jeans you buy.
Absolutely.
How have jeans companies not figured this out
It's so true. We actually did a workshop last year on pockets, and we did a couple of workshops on making pockets, which, oh yeah, you did. And that was also interesting because we did a lot of research into the history of pockets, in particular in women's clothing. Both, kind of like a trajectory of pockets.
Women's pockets,
The
I suppose.
invention and then the kind of disappointment of women's pockets.
Oh, that's fine.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, that's great. And you're actually doing, do you want to talk about what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm just doing a chain stitch.
Yeah.
I want to do something which is not flat.
Yeah.
And it's stitched across.
Yeah.
It shows that.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, the chain stitch is commonly used in embroidery techniques and is a really satisfying way of creating these bold, raised lines. So thanks for introducing that technique to this.
I haven't made it wide enough, but I think I just want to make sure that this is like not up. But I think it's fitting, like that's where it should be.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Should I do a chain stitch? Would that be cool? Yeah, I'm inspired now.
Yeah, definitely.
Blanket stitch will also look nice on what you're trying to do. That will up and down.
I noticed, what is the style of mending that you mentioned?
Sashko.
Sashko, they just use that blanket stitch.
Yeah. They'd use
Running
different-
stitch. Yeah, it's just, yeah. I wish we had brought a Sashko sample, but
Yeah,
I
we
don't know
should
if I
have brought a
kept any.
Sashko.
I ended up giving them all away. But yeah, you know a running stitch, yeah? Do you get the principle of Sashko?
Yeah, just going like back and forth and back
Yeah.
and forth. But maybe I'll try a chain stitch.
Yeah. Yeah, although you won't have with that thread, it will be so thin that you probably won't see it.
Oh yeah, true.
But if you wanted to use an embroidery floss, you might have better luck if you want it to be more visible.
Another
Yeah. Well, let me see if we have that color.
Another aspect of mending that's really interesting to see across different menders is whether it's a visible mend or a hidden mend. So some of the things that distinguish the two are choosing colors that very closely match whatever needs repair. So these socks, for example, you've chosen a creamy white, which is pretty close to the color of the sock, versus Pramela's, who's chose a hot pink on white. So it's really nice to see like what intention the mender has through these little decisions. Yeah, and so often that's exactly right. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I like to feel as if I'm like bringing in truth to the object itself,
Right.
restoring it to its former state.
Yeah. Yeah, restoration is another word that that kind of factors in here versus amend. Like I think of amend as just sewing up a hole versus a restoration as like a careful consideration of the entire piece and how it can be reawoken or kind of given new life into its former state. Yeah, yeah, that's right.
The rest of my process is recreation.
Mm.
My whole thesis is the recreation of clothing.
Mm-hmm.
So somehow, like it feels like it should be invisible.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just all feels like it's the same.
Do you think that also by reading a lot of like early 20th century and late 19th century texts about sewing, like the right way to mend?
Yeah.
Like
Mm-hmm.
the idea of visible men creating a good thing, art is a really
It's true, yeah, and
or sorry, recent idea in like Western culture.
Okay. Great. So for whoever's online, this is for you. This is the second step of to finish a darn. If you're, yeah, I hope you're able to follow along. I'll do a second color to make it more visible, but if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. So at this stage, what you're going to do is follow a classic weave, and that involves going over and under the stitches that you've just made. So starting in the kind of top corner, I'm going to decide to go under first. I'm going to go over the next, under, over, under, over. So be slow and methodical at this because it is really about patience. And for the next row, you're going to do the exact opposite. So the rows that you went under, you're going to go over, and you're going to go under the rows that you went over. I know that's confusing, but just going to take it slow and be patient with it. So as you can see, kind of like you're seeing the opposite stitches pop up. That's exactly what you want. So again, you're going to repeat what you did the first row, which is going under the first stitch, over, under. At this point, you're kind of just wanting to get close to the last line of stitches that you did. So you're not necessarily going to go directly under over the stitches, but kind of you can go under the sock itself. And you're going to do the opposite. So there's just 2 rows of stitches you're doing, and you're just alternating between going over and under to under and over. So just let yourself get kind of lost in this meditative act and find just it's the kind of thing you want to allow yourself time for. Otherwise, it, if rushed, isn't as enjoyable, I suppose. All right, so I'm just doing my last row here. And in order to clean it up, you're just gonna darn in the ends exactly how you've done this whole process. So this is my tail. I'm just gonna go under, over, can kind of be arbitrary at this point. And once you get a centimeter in, you can cut your end, and that's pretty locked in. So no need for knots, especially on socks. It helps to not make knots so you're not stepping on these kind of bulky threads. So yeah, just cut those when you're ready. That's pretty much it. If there's any questions online, please feel free to put them in the chat. Cool.
touch and keep sharing like positive things to each other. And now that becomes a platform to share anything like this, so more people know about it.
It's really a question that comes up so often in textiles work, I guess across the arts really, but I've had that question so often. It's, how long did that take you? And although the hours accumulate and you sort of lose track, what I'm always surprised by is that in this busy life, there is the time. And at least in my life at this point, there is the time. And that time is often while watching TV in the evening before bed, or if you manage to sneak away for a weekend and just taking a break. And
Yeah, what's so wonderful too is how portable this type of practice is. Not all textile practices are as portable. So yeah, it's something you can bring to the park.
Yeah, because the hand stitching model was such that we were actually traveling with our piece all the time, stitching it, because we can't otherwise finish one garment in a month at all.
Yeah. I find that I usually work on these kind of projects in social settings because it's like, you're often sitting with a group of friends like at the park or something like that, and it's so easy to be able to bring something like this with you and work on it. It's good. Maybe I'm giving too much away here, but it's good. I find in like class or going to lectures or that kind of thing, so I'm the kind of person who goes like, oh, I want to say something. But if I'm working on a project, I'm listening and my hands are busy and I'm not getting distracted.
yeah, commuting to work. Yeah.
Where did you put those buttons?
The buttons are back in the
I
bag.
had a student last winter who was working on her first ever.
Oh, you're gonna dance? Oh,
Yeah, I'm doing my second darn here.
so is that, what is that? Is that what that light bulb's for?
Yeah, it's what I'm using my darning egg or darning mushroom for.
Oh, I've never seen that.
Yeah, it's an old vintage object I bought on Etsy. Apparently it's over 100 years old.
Wow.
This one as well, I've got one buried in my sock. It's a slightly different shape. So it's really nice because your needle can kind of hit against the wood and slide, so you can really keep pace with what you're doing. And there's all different sizes, and you might have noticed there's some odd objects on the table. We have light bulbs, which work really well. Yeah, there's a light bulb in that sock. We've used water bottles, tennis balls. You can kind of just, whatever fits
I
your...
wonder how they came up with that. Or did thimbles come first, or those before thimbles?
What came first? Yeah, it's true.
The darning egg, yeah.
Marble eggs, or even an egg would work. There's also this really handy tool that you can get called a darning loom, which is a very small, circular shaped tool that you put one part inside whatever you're darning, and the other part loops around like an embroidery loop on the outside. And it has these metal fixtures that you push and pull back and forth, and that helps guide your stitch. The one on the back of my jacket was done with a darning loom. So it's just very, it's very exact. So you can get, yeah, it's like a tiny loom, exactly.
This
And it
one I
helps you
did.
to recreate.
It's easy to add like color this way as well, like make some more intricate patterns.
Right.
But it sits on the surface instead of being integrated, which is more what I'm doing here. So it depends on what kind of mend you want. Like if it's in a structural area that is going to get more wear, I usually tend to integrate the stitches more. But if it's more decorative, then doing it on the surface.
Kind of like that?
Yeah.
Is that more integrated?
Yeah, exactly. Although it shrunk in the wash, which is why it's like.
I'll also
a
say that
pocket.
the darning looms are a really worthwhile tool if you're someone with, you know, vision challenges or dexterity challenges, because mending does require such kind of detailed work that it's not always the most accessible activity. But a darning loom can be a really helpful tool to help guide your stitches.
This is the first time I've mended in so long, and I realized this is the first time I actually need glasses to see through the needle.
Yeah.
So I can imagine the older I get, right, the more your vision.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So everyone here sounds like has some mending experience, yeah? Do you remember how you learned?
My mom.
I learned from a book from 1897.
Ooh,
Oh, you learned from a
1897.
book. Wow.
It's quite a popular book in its time. It's for teachers who were teaching kids how to sew.
Okay.
It's meant to teach them how to teach.
Okay.
I bought it early 2020 before COVID, and I started learning how to sew from it. I didn't really know how to sew.
Okay.
And it also has whole sections on darning.
Yeah.
That's great.
And did you have anybody like that you were learning alongside, or was it fully independent?
Self-taught.
Entirely self-taught, and I had a rule where if I really wasn't able to figure it out, I could look at a YouTube video, but I don't do that unless there's no other way.
Okay.
Hmm.
Wow.
I want the book to be the one that dictates how I know what I'm doing.
That's interesting. I learned how to knit via a book, but I was also quite young when I learned. But there are definitely some things that are lost in written form that is hard. It's just hard to, I find even like trying to say an instruction is difficult without seeing it.
I mean, this book has diagrams in it that are really
Yeah.
good, and the diagrams change. And as each diagram changes, the next step is in red, and the rest of it is in black. So it's actually really easy, and they show hands in these drawings as well.
Okay.
That show you even how to hold the fabric, how to hold the needle.
Okay. Wonderful.
There's also really something to be said by just learning by doing. I think I still change how I darn minutely every single time I darn. There's something slightly different.
Wow.
Just it could be where I pick up a stitch, or when I curve to come back up the line that I've already darned, you know, how much fabric I'm gathering on the other end. So you kind of learn little tricks as you go, and
I agree completely with that. And, like with people that recreate clothing, because it's the thing people do, they recreate historical clothing. And a lot of that I've found that there's sort of two camps of people who do it however they want to do it, and then people who say you have to stick to exactly the way that it was done before, and you have to follow the books. And I think I sit in between the two. Like, there's a certain extent that anyone who's making clothing is going to have their own way of doing things, and if they're not going to follow the book, something else makes more sense to them. And so I think that's also like the changing every time you do something.
Yeah.
Whatever feels most natural in the moment.
It's funny as I hear you guys speaking. I think I only ever do the same thing when I bend. The things that I've learned, and then I just repeat them because I think it's kind of mending has an idea of practical use, unless you're doing it for you want something to show particularly instead of just mending a particular hole or a particular spot as opposed to expressing something or elaborating on it.
Yeah. Yeah. But do you feel like you changed the way it is decoratively, or is it really always for purpose?
Well, I guess the idea of darning and mending to me only means for purpose and practical use.
Right. Yeah.
I guess it's the first time I questioned.
Yeah.
Is it not? Is it something else? I'm not sure.
Oh, it's also funny that you're saying that, but you're doing the most radical mend out of everybody, because you're like mending a piece of fabric to be a different thing.
Yeah, true.
So you're like the secret radical.
Yeah, maybe I just don't realize.
Who taught you how to?
My mom.
Your mom?
Yeah, I think I was like 12.
Okay.
And she was on the sewing machine and she's like, come here, honey. It's your turn to learn how. And she showed me, and it was had such a good feeling because it seemed really easy to master because the concept is quite clear, in and out, either on the top or the bottom.
Yeah.
So at a young age, you can kind of master like some basics easily.
Yeah.
I remember feeling like, wow,
I
now
got
could
this.
join join the group.
What about you, Molly Claire?
I don't know if I ever got taught how to mend. I was trying to think about like the earliest time that I remember mending. My step grandma did a lot of like seamstress work kind of on the side, and she had a studio, and I remember her fixing one of my teddy bears by like patching him with little hearts and stars on his little holes of his body. So I guess that was probably my first exposure to mending.
Yeah.
But I think I just kind of taught myself, like I learned how to sew a little bit from my mom and my grandma, but they had both stopped doing that very much by the time I was old enough to really do it.
Yeah. And remind me if this object belonged to someone in your family. Is this true?
Oh yeah, this is my mom's jean jacket.
Okay.
Except the holes in the sleeves are totally from me.
Yeah.
I've worn it to shreds.
Such an historical garment.
Yeah.
I got a lot of clothes in the room like that are like, she's already worn out, and then I was like, I like this, I'll wear this now. You don't
No,
want
I'm gonna wear it out.
Well, it kind of also brings up the point that a lot of my mending anyway feels like it's done for other people too. So there's something nice about spending time on something, whether it's visible or invisible, that you then just let go of and give back. And some people I've found are like, oh great, thanks. And other people are like, whoa, how long did this take you? And they ask that special question. Yeah, it can be really satisfying to give things away, but also,
to mend for other people. I think, and there's something about like making and mending wearables for other people. I think that's really special. Like the idea that you're spending time with this thing that this person, like that protects them from the elements or that they wear on their body, you know? And like there's been a little bit of, like I can think of some artists who have done some work about that, because it's something that I wrote about in my thesis, the idea of like the resonance of like worn objects and what it means to make clothing for somebody. And I think like mending something for somebody is also really meaningful in that way. It's like an act of really practical care, but you're also like caring for a garment and for them at the same time, and then the garment cares for them.
Yes, well said. chain of care.
Oh, that's like your chain of
Yeah.
care.
I definitely feel that like these socks are like I owe them a lot. They were the ones that got me into the indie program in the first place. Like it suggested the program and stuff to me. So it's really nice to get to do something for them.
I've often offered mending as a trade too, so it's like a skill I feel like I can offer people. And yeah, I do kind of romanticize a world of gifting and trading, but I do think it is a practical, not everyone's going to be a great mender, so if you can offer that skill for people who really don't enjoy it.
I think like for this kind of menu, you kind of have to. It helps. You don't have to, but it does help to know how to knit. If you're going to be following the knit stitches.
Oh yeah, definitely with that technique. Yeah.
You don't knit. It's not like you can't do it, but it doesn't. I think it would make it more difficult because like I feel like I understand the structure of the fabric better.
Yeah, it's true. You can certainly mend something that has been knit without knowing how to knit. It's just your mend might look a bit more ramshackle and improvised, which depending on your standards, it could be a great conversation starter or a point of embarrassment.
And then there's also the question of who really looks at other people's socks, I suppose.
Especially the bottoms.
Although if I had a pair of socks made of dog hair, I'd probably show them to people.
Yeah, a lot.
She's got mittens as well.
Wow.
Those are the ones that drive my dog completely insane.
Does this person go to Estonia a lot? Or are they Estonian?
Rebecca just posts.
Oh yeah, I don't personally, but I know that.
She and her partner, so she's just about a year away from Concordia, but they went on a sabbatical. She started teaching at an art school there that's taking in a lot of students who were in
Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like an amazing art school. Like, I wish I could go there.
Gorgeous.
Wow, I love it.
Are you already done? Just like that.
I'm like my mom. I'm like quick. Yeah. I'm like quick bender.
The only thing I really know about Estonia is I read an article about like travel in
Would you like
Estonia a while ago that made me really want to go there. Apparently, like the blogs are.
And I wanted to put breads and
I don't know how much they can have, but they live in Tallinn and they love it so much, like they don't want to leave, I think.
Some reinforcement.
Do you know a blanket stitch? Yeah, it's pretty like it is a simple stitch actually.
How's yours coming along?
Good. Actually, I just realized I might go check my email and see if there was anybody that was supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is gonna be like the rough draft because you can't.
This is great though. The foundations.
Yeah, and then I think I'll go in the darker color and I'll do a little bit more.
Okay. That's a great idea. Yeah.
But I'm really happy with this color too because it's like it's actually not gonna look horrible on the other side.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it won't be beautiful, but it'll.
Good for you. Yeah, nice job.
Although, I wonder if I soak this in like oxygen or something.
The stains?
Yeah, it's like very clear.
We actually have a great stain remover suggestion.
What is your stain remover
We found it at the hardware store a few years ago and we've been getting them ever since. Do you remember the name of it actually?
It's called Buncha Farmers. Like
Yeah.
like Buncha with Buncha
Okay.
Farmers.
Okay.
And it's like fully eco kind of friendly, so that's
You
the
soak
plus.
stuff in it?
You essentially kind of use it to you rub it on your stain, and we kind of have this like dish brush that we like scrub it in, but that can be too harsh on some fabrics, but on jean it would definitely work.
bunch of farmers.
Yeah.
And if you buy it at the hardware store, it sounds like it's the real deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. There's like things that have been stained for years that other stain removers could never tackle, and then this bunch of farmers came along.
This is really nice. I used to work at Tabitha for like 3 different
Yeah.
times now.
Oh, yeah?
Different cities. And I was always like, I want the good one this time. And I would always buy like big rounds of the cheapest stuff
Yeah.
because you could like,
Yeah, just throw it away. Yeah.
yeah. But I always loved.
So Selina and I have some sort of prompt questions for reflection that we'd like to share. And these questions are, answerable through storytelling, or if you'd like to just think about them as you work. But they kind of start to, we just like to sort of think about the parallels between mending and repair for these emotionally embedded or imbued objects, and mending or repair for emotionally embedded and imbued life things. So kind of applying the metaphor of mending to other areas of life, whether it be for ourselves or our relationships or our communities. And also just thinking back on the last workshop, part 1 of Wearable Memory, the first question to reflect on is, how do the actions of mending or repairing relate to memory? And in particular, memory that is experienced through the senses of smell or touch, or even sight, just seeing the things that we're working on. So maybe just take a moment to also reflect on what might be coming up for you in your memory while engaging with these objects.
And for space of like that, if we have a longer thing to say, to use a mic. So there's 2 here, for those of us who aren't like that.
Great.
So I almost understand your question.
Sure.
I was kind of following it, but then I got lost near the end.
Sure.
So a memory that's sense-induced, how you clarify just a little bit.
Yeah, well, I'd just like to know what memories might be coming up as you engage with, in your case, this hat and this bag or this fabric or this process.
In terms of mending emotion.
Just memory, just action, yeah.
Whether that recalls what you're learning the last time you did it, or it could be anything. Yeah. Cool.
Don't have an answer yet.
Well, oh yeah, for sure. But first I wanted to say I gave Melissa these buttons, which came with my first knitting, kind of beginner pack, and it was to make I think it was some kind of shawl with the button, but I never made it. But to see you walk away with them today is bring me back to this memory of being, a beginner knitter and, making that first scarf that didn't turn out that great, but, was a huge accomplishment as a wee 14-year-old. So thank you for bringing that up for me today. Okay.
I don't know if you want to maybe put up all of it.
Yes. I think.
Or
Molly Claire, you talked a little bit about how this jacket was your mother's jacket. Yeah. Do you have any memories associated with the jacket that you'd like to share?
Actually, mending this jacket feels really good because I was telling the people in the last workshop that I tend to take items of clothing from my mom and then not give them back. And I'm always very honest about it. Like I take them and tell her I'm going to take them and ask permission and then apologize for not bringing them back. So they're like stolen hand-me-downs. So it feels kind of similar to with your socks, Yesha, and like doing a favor for a person that did a favor for you. It feels like if I'm going to steal something, at least I should be a good custodian of it, you know? So I'm happy I'm being a good custodian and fixing it.
That's great. Yeah, I have to get better at telling my mom when I've taken something of hers, rather than just like slipping it back onto her table or her bedroom years later.
It's like we're more or less the same size and have been since I was about 14, so it's like
Bound to
very,
happen.
very, like
My mom and I make clothes for each other. It's really easy because you just make
So
it
yeah,
fit
that's
yourself
part of
and you
it.
know it's
Part
not
of
for the other
it.
person.
Oh,
I also love that that sentence started when my mom and I make clothes
So
for
I was
each
like
other.
watching this happen.
Yeah, actually,
And I was like, oh.
that
okay.
is.
Yeah, it's a pair of trousers because we do. I sew a lot, but
Yes.
like my skills in sewing are kind of limited because it's only historical stuff that I do. Like I don't use zigzag stitches and I don't use overlockers and stuff, but she does. So if I need something made with a modern, I'll give it to her and say, I need something made. If I want something, I'll give it to her. So I had a pair of trousers that I actually were hers that I took and wore out to the point where they really were beyond mending. Like it was worth it. And then I said, "Could you make me 2 more pairs of these?" So she did for Christmas. And then I really wanted them as shorts for the summer because I wear them so much. So she's just made me 2 pairs for the summer. And she was making them while I wasn't there. And she's, measuring the waistband and elastic and stuff and putting that in and measuring it up herself.
That is really wonderful to be able to like put in an order for.
It's fabulous. But also, like, I knit myself a vest this winter. She doesn't knit, so she saw it. She says, "Oh, I'd like one of those." All right. Yeah. I actually just dyed fabric for the first time today. I dyed a pair of their shorts. I didn't like the color.
Good for you. That's another great skill to have. Speaking of stains and covering them up.
I'm growing madder and indigo this summer.
Okay.
Which I'm really, really excited about. Yeah. I've never dyed with indigo, but it's my favorite color.
Well, these socks are Selina's socks, and I just picked them up off the table. There's no rhyme or reason, but I've seen you wear these socks many a time, usually through sparkly see-through sandals, and I feel as though my memories of you in these socks are usually in the summer on your bike. Maybe I'll be biking behind you on our way to the park. You're probably carrying way too many things to the park,
Including your mending.
including your
Yeah,
mending
yeah.
projects. So
Flower
summer.
power, you know?
So now you'll be able to watch all of those mends
Yeah,
as you like see Selina pedaling in front of you.
yeah, it's true. Good thing I've done them in a totally clashing color. I'll be able to see them.
Something I find really interesting that I don't necessarily have an answer to, which is like, when do you give up on a piece of clothing?
I love that question.
Yeah, when is it beyond repair?
I don't know the answer to that.
And does not repairing mean giving up? Like, are there other ways to care for an item of clothing than to like repair it?
You can keep it, but at some point it's just stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. It's just hoarding materials.
But can you like turn it into something else?
Parts of it, maybe, but like.
Yeah, it's a great question. Some things are definitely beyond repair or not worth the effort. I mean, you can pass clothing along as a hand-me-down. You can upcycle it into something kind of different. But yeah, there's certainly things in my life that don't even feel like me anymore. So putting the effort in to mend them, yeah, it's a good question.
I have some antique pieces that I've mended and then worn, but as I wore those pieces, I knew that they were, not as strong as, newly made pieces. And I just seen the other day another hole happened, and I was like, is this getting too is it getting too antique to wear? I think that may
another
be a
good
question
question.
too. Like, yeah, there's a
Like at what
time
point
when
is
it becomes
something
fragile.
distressed, and at what point is it just like a fragile thing that you
Yeah,
should
and then you don't want, you want to actually still value it because you really like that piece because it's antique.
Right.
But then what's the point of having an antique piece that you can't really wear? Are you gonna like frame them in your apartment
Yeah.
or something? Or?
Yeah.
I keep antique pieces to study from. Like I have pieces that was a skirt that was given to me by a friend that was like her great grandmother's, and she wore it until she ripped it, like wore it for Halloween in the 70s and completely destroyed it. But like there's still elements in it that I can learn from. And like elements of that actually went to the skirt on the dress form over there that I learned from that piece. And I don't know if I'll ever throw that piece away.
Where do you keep that piece?
It's wrapped up in acid-free paper in the closet.
That's to keep the moths away, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's cotton, so the likelihood of, but I don't know, it just seems sort of irresponsible to leave it just sitting free in the closet.
Yeah.
Especially because it was like a friend of mine who gave it to me, and it was her great grandmother's. It's like I really ought to take care of this.
Yeah.
And something.
I love the color.
Congrats.
Wow. Actually, you matched my heart on my sleeve. That's
That was
so
a really
lovely.
beautiful sentence.
You matched the heart on
my sleeve.
Congratulations, you've worked really quickly.
Yeah. So you've done this before, yes?
Yeah, we got a professional
No?
over here.
I mean, yeah, I know things, but this particular, I've just done it from personal. If I would have done mending, I go this way.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I felt like doing this.
Yeah.
Like when I started this running stitch, no, that chain stitch.
Yeah.
Even here I've done little chain stitch.
Okay, so you did the whole thing in chain stitch.
Yeah, I will not do otherwise, and it has little flexibility.
Yeah.
If it gets shrunk, it's fine, it will come to the cotton.
That's
And
great.
if it doesn't shrunk, then also it has some, it sets on your body.
I love that you've brought your own skill set to this session. That's wonderful.
Yeah, it does. So yeah, it's fun.
One of the other questions that Selina and I were thinking about was where is the point, or when does it come to a time when you actually need to ask for help in repairing something that you can't do on your own?
Just be on or you don't have a tool.
You don't have the tools, you don't have the capacity, you don't have the time.
Time is one, but if it is clothing, then I guess tools. Because certain tools need like specific one you can't do by hand, and it can be a little machine with hand. But if it is other objects like wood or other materials, then definitely lack of skill.
Or like lack of connection. Like that's one of the things I'm finding with my bike right now, because I know lots of people who know how to fix textiles. I know lots of people, and I do as well. Not like that, but lots of people who know how to fix things made of wood, and I do as well. But in a city full of like bike people, I don't actually really know any bike people, and so I want to learn how to do repairs on my bike and like do a spring tune-up and all of that. But I don't really know where to go or who to ask. I have like a couple leads, but I think often it's like who you know and what resources you have in terms of people.
And also where you live, maybe.
Where you live.
Yeah.
I feel like as a Gen Xer, I feel like I was just really taught as a group to learn something and then be really independent and confident with your making do of however and whatever you learn, because that's a big crafty. And I feel like if I ever need to learn something, I have a foundation of like that kind of confident know-how in manual, like whatever's, and I'm not picky. So it's always worked as a, so I don't know. I mean, I would like to go have a reason to go outside that and ask, but I can't think of any, because I would just figure it out. But I would like
Where does
this.
that end? Like, what about
Yeah.
electrical? You
Well,
know, like I'm thinking,
I love this. This is
are
the
you an
first.
expert?
This is the first time this year this came up. So oh, I was so proud of myself. Really, I bought this really old, maybe 80s, like tree that would light up when you plug it in Chinatown.
Is it one of those ones with the little tiny glass bulbs that you stick in? Like a Christmas
No,
tree?
I know what you're talking about. That's and the lady said she had a lot of dead stock in that. It was like a pharmacy in Chinatown, so they have stuff from the 80s for tourism. So she's like, if it doesn't work though, you can't return it. I'm like, what? I looked inside, I'm like, oh, maybe I can figure out even if it didn't. So I got home and I plugged it in and it worked. And then like the next morning it stopped working. I'm like, oh, that was fast. So I opened it up and I seen like 4 wires, and I suddenly went back to when I was a kid and my dad was showing me, okay, so you just slice it off the copper wires, you just, and then you and I was like, oh my God, am I gonna do this? Am I gonna get electrocuted? I said, no, I can do this. So I actually went back to that memory and did what my dad had showed me like so long ago. And then I took I said, I was scared to plug it in though. I'm like, what if and it worked. And I was like, yes.
Talk about memory and repair. Holy cow.
I had the first step of that this winter. My sewing machine stopped working. And I knew exactly it was an electrical problem, and I don't do electrics, even though I really ought to. So I called my dad, and he came over that evening, and we sat there, and he showed me what to do, and I was like, oh, this is easy, I can do this. So next time it happens, I'm fine.
Oh, that's great.
So there's the first step, your memory, but I've just made the memory.
And
That's
asking
it's
for
a big
help.
deal to take the machine to a shop is a big deal. Like if you could learn a little bit to how to fix a sewing machine is.
I'm like, I know enough about electrics to know that it was a simple job to fix, especially because the machine's so old, so it doesn't have any fancy electrics with it. Like it only does straight stitch.
Wow, you guys are inspiring me. I have a sewing machine that needs a tune-up, and I keep meaning to take it to the sewing machine guy who's very far away. But now I feel like maybe I should just do it myself.
Or ask.
Or
Is
ask
there
for
someone
help.
you can?
They're pretty simple. Well, it depends on what machines you're doing. The machines I use are very simple, but
Well, I just really don't want to damage it. I have like an Elna from the 1950s. Do you know those like green
that's
ones?
pretty simple.
Yeah? Okay.
I think as long as they're not digital, they're figure outable, and the pieces are pretty solid. There's not a lot of
And also,
fragile.
like, almost every machine has a YouTube video showing you how to fix it.
To that. If nothing, I go to YouTube and teach myself and figure it.
Yeah.
Carla, do you want to work on anything else? Yeah.
Feel like
Okay.
Well, we're
I'm still just taking a moment to see what all are doing, because I was just looking at my piece so far.
Yeah.
But I would love to contribute to that big one.
Yeah,
Whenever you start.
we'll let you know when that's happening. We can let everyone know
Yeah.
when that's happening, and
How cool
it would be
we are
great to do in
sitting
the
a
summer.
park and everybody's doing their
Exactly.
Yeah.
If there's
Yeah.
any left by the fall, I'd love to do some.
Sure.
It depends on whether or not there's anything left in November.
We will let you know. It'd be great to get your emails or contact info.
Yeah, is everybody who's sitting around the table right now, would you be comfortable with having your email shared to the group that's here?
So
What if that has a single message? So you can just give it to us, we work on it and we give it back. And then we all stitch together.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah, I think the idea for this was to gather people because we're really interested in art making as gathering and a non-individualized process. But certainly with the samples, it's possible. Yeah, we still have to configure how it's going to work. It's going to have to happen over time. Like not every square will be done at once, of course. And also, Selina and I have tested it where, you know, one person's worked on, I think we maybe even did these samples at the same time on either end. And it's tough when you're pushing and pulling and you're, you know, kind of taking breaks. And so there's a certain amount of collaborative effort that's required to just sustain the process.
Have you ever thought of having like a park mending meetup where you're just like in the park and people could come and work on it with you?
Yeah, I think that's the idea, as an extension of our mending workshops from last summer, which were happening mostly outside, in these gathering points. Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's it.
Excited to see that one come into fruition because it's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
It makes me think of some quilts that put together. Some sewing circle I'm part of in the States, which is like a bunch of ladies over 60 and me. And they made a quilt last year where it was a lot of the similar fabrics. There was sort of one lady who I think was about 94, and she was the boss. She was leading it. But everybody, each person sort of took home 5 or 6 squares and made them at home and then brought them in. And then they just put it together, and it's only just been finished and as they're on sale. But it was like really nice to see it sort of come together every few weeks. You see a whole nother step.
Well, I think I finished one of the socks in my mend. Looks like a little bit of a face or
Like a beak and
a beak and 2 eyes in very clashing colors.
Cool.
So that's my mend for Selina's foot.
Thank you.
We'll see how it holds up.
And I have holes in most of my socks because of this one nail that I always snag my socks on as I exit my bedroom. And no matter how many times. No. Yeah, a nail from the floorboard that just sticks up no matter how much you like pound it down, the floorboards like move it.
Our floor is in need of some mends. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. Alas, I don't mind fixing a tiny hole.
It's like I just remembered, you know, being a teenager and having to fix holes in nylons and using the clear nail polish.
Yeah.
I've done that too to make it not run.
Yeah, that's a good trick.
I wonder if that works on things like fabric. I only seen it in
Yeah, on nylon.
nylon.
I've used it on bed sheets actually, but like not in the scratchy area that would bother you, but like down by the foot where you don't usually touch the sheets. So, because I have some holes in my bed sheets that like run. So
Maybe if they're
I'll try to catch
polyester,
them. Yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure what these are.
Blend polyester.
They're
Or they
they're-
should be. If they're
yeah.
blends, they might be like a knit fabric.
Yeah, they're a knit fabric. Yeah.
Because I know chemical with chemical would probably work well. I wonder if chemical and
Natural fiber. Yeah, it was just a kind of quick fix, but it seems to have done the trick.
Yeah, that's a fun experiment. Seeing what that would
Yeah.
use together.
Yeah.
The fabric.
Yeah. I'm just reminded again of my students who intentionally tear their nylons before they come to school. They'll like rip them up. And it's sort of a one-time use thing because you can't really get your legs back in them when they're all torn up like that. Your feet pop out of all of the holes when you're putting them on.
So do they put them on and then tear them?
Yeah, I've gone into the bathroom and seen them ripping them before class starts.
That's so rebellious.
Which just feels like the opposite of how I think about things, but I think we get a kick out of each other's different approaches.
They're like, oh my goodness, our teacher like amends.
Yeah.
It's so weird. Here we are.
So weird.
How's that hat coming?
I'm almost done. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just like my first.
Yeah,
but,
great.
But at least it's cared for.
Yeah. Hey.
Can I ask so I just got this really cute, probably from the 1970s based on the tag, like knit, but like really silky knit children's Brazil soccer jersey.
Ooh.
Not jersey, like shirt with the logo on it. And I'm going to give it to my friend's son from Brazil. But
Okay.
it has a run on the front.
Okay.
And I started trying to mend it based on what I like imagined that you would do, based on just thinking, oh, it's like knitting but with a needle.
Right.
And I don't know if I got it right. So I picked up the bottom loop in the bottom of the run, and then I like stuck the needle in on one side, in the other side, so that there was a loop. And then I went up a little bit, in, and then I pulled that loop through. And then and I kept like pulling the loop, like making the loop.
Yeah.
Is that how you do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
We do have also a piece of paper that has some visible instructions. This is actually something that was created by a Toronto-based group of artists called the Cloth Care Collective, and they did a sort of workshop.
It is like the doctor's office.
Yeah, exactly. So this was from an event called Nuit Blanche, which was in Toronto last fall, and they had hired a number of menders to come help them. So Selina and I were there last fall to help the Cloth Care Collective with their mending clinic, and it was a great event. They really put together a special thing. So they had these handouts. They had a number of rooms that were set up for mending. So a lot of the same materials that we have here, plus sewing machines and ironing boards. And you had these really quick 20-minute appointments. So people would line up with an item that they brought in, and you would receive them, and we were all like wearing lab coats, and we'd receive them, and we'd kind of go through the diagnoses. So is it a shirt? Is it a pant? Is it a sock? What's the prescribed mend? What's the mender's name? What's the garment's age? And on the inside of this takeaway, there's some visible instructions. So you have, I think what you're referring to is Swiss darning, this one here, which is a type of mending that, as it suggests here, add foundation threads to stabilize the structure of the knit, then introduce duplicate stitch to fill in the hole. So exactly. So there's lots of different types of mending and darning. Some of them are outlined here. So if you want to, you can. There's some patches on the back, including sashiko, which we were also talking about for your jeans.
Yeah, I think I was kind of doing that, but I think that it would be worthwhile to go back and like start from the beginning according to that method, so that it's going to be more sturdy.
And it's tricky with one that's unraveled, so I do think that you've done the correct thing, but the tricky thing is whether you've done it on the correct side, because you might be repeating knit stitch versus a purl stitch, depending on.
I think that I was doing it for the aesthetic. Like I was focused on the aesthetic, so I got the stitch in the right direction and the right stitch.
Yeah.
The thing I'm worried about is, did I pick up all the stuff that I was supposed to, and is there
Right.
Well,
Mhm.
what did you think of?
I noticed that we're all women, and I think this is a traditional woman thing, but I just was curious all of a sudden, are there like male mending circles anywhere in the world? I'm like, is it men who do? I know traditionally, right? There's a lot of married women with children who mend for the whole family. But
I have to say, I was
curious all of a
mending
sudden.
shoes with needle and thread.
Shoes with needle and thread. That's pretty hardcore.
It was also hard. It was like a pair of bloodstones where the back stitching was
What's the
busted.
fabric? What's the fabric of the shoe?
There was enough it was leather, but the
Oh.
holes were established enough that I could like,
Wow.
punch
And the same
the
thing, this is all
needle
stuff
through.
that I did
And the
before.
person who gave me advice was my brother. So I have to say, I guess I come from a family of menders, both male and female.
Oh, look at that.
But also, I wonder if it's because, like, it's interesting the fact that it's shoes, right? Like, that's not a textile garment, that's not shoes. So that almost feels a little bit different.
And there's a lot of male shoemakers in general, or like,
Yeah, and which was
Mhm.
out.
But he likes to fix it.
Yeah, I do think historically, textiles groups and guilds, skill sharing groups or meetups were primarily for women. But even just last year in our mending series, we didn't really feel like that was relevant anymore. I mean, my brother and his friends would come along, or friends who we'd met at school, people who were just walking by, and anyone and everyone showed interest. And I think that that's because it is practical. And at the end of the day, holes do not discriminate. So yeah, it's an interesting reflection.
Although one thing I will say is that this project as a whole and the workshops, almost exclusively, the names signed up for the workshops, I can't think of one like male sounding or like traditionally male name that signed up for any of the workshops that we've done. So that is something, you know, in itself. I guess it shows like maybe how like women-dominated textile studies can be sometimes.
I found in my undergrad, I was in a really male-dominated area, and guys regularly asked me if I could mend their trousers for them, like holes in their knees. Yeah, and I told them I'll teach you how to do it, but I won't do it for you, and none of them ever showed any interest. Backstage theater, but in like rigging.
And it would have been very useful for them to know.
It would have been very useful for them to know. I mean, there's times when I've fixed cloths in the theater when we didn't have time to have someone come in and actually properly fix them, where I knew what to do and I went in and I was able to fix them. And none of these guys could have done that. But they showed no interest in gaining that skill set. This is also maybe a very particular kind of sort of macho Scottish lad rather than someone who's maybe in a more inclusive space.
It's very funny, like back in India in my school, where I done my textiles, so it's India's first design school. So we have these two departments. There are many disciplines, but there is a product design and textile design. In textile, so we have a very small group, like 13 people. Out of those 13, always it's a curiosity that who are the men joining this program. So there will be always 2 or 1 man in textiles. And product, it will be other way around. There will be 1 or 2 women, and they both are on the same floor, which is fun. There was no time when we had like 10 men in textile design. It's always, but those men are like, they do everything very particularly and nicely. But they're always, I can count them past couple of years of batches.
Historically, in India, what has the how have textiles been divided according to gender? Because I know that men are involved in textile.
Men are involved in weaving. So if I talk about spinning, hand spinning specifically, if it is wool, then there are 2 types, which is drop spinning and the spinning wheel. So the one which you use for your clothing, which is finely spinning, done by women, so they're staying back and doing it. Men either is a shepherd or is either somebody who's like traveling, so they are on the drop spinner. They're making the yarn while walking, but they make thicker yarn, which will be used for the cords and other stuff. So reinforcing material. And as far as so the clusters of villages were such that there are farmers. All communities can be farmer. There is no particular. So we have this caste system, for example. So there is no particular caste or a class doing farming. Anybody can do farming who own the land, basically.
or you work on some other's land. So when you own the land, you have sheep, kettles, different livestock. You have access to the materials. And then there will be a cluster of weavers. So let's say between 4 villages or 3 villages, there will be a cluster of 1 village where you have 2 or 3 families of weavers. So you spin the yarn and they come, take the yarn and make the fabric for you and give it back. So earlier, there was no money involved, it was a barter system. So we are farmers, for example, so we give you grains for the yearly grain stock and you make my fabrics. Similarly, so there is a maker community basically. Now also, many places. So one is weaver, but other are also like working with wood, working with leather, working with different materials. So this whole maker community will be taking as a barter from the farmers. That was the second. Then industrialization happened. Then we got a lot of exports and machineries. But still, somehow, all this hand economy, because apart from, so agriculture is the main source of income for India. Largest industry, I would say, and second largest is hand woven fabrics. So every state has specific type of hand woven fabrics. Some of them have silk cultivation and they make silk fabric, some of them make cotton, some of them make wool, different types. And in silk also there are different varieties. So sari you might be all knowing, it's a piece of fabric. One can drape whatever way they want. So each state have particular type of sari. And it's a heirloom thing, like you collect them and then you pass it on generation by generation, because there's nothing happening, nobody's like, it's not, it is really a fluid garment. Whatever body type is, you can wear it. So doing this, all the handloom industry were thriving so far. They have some of the complex way of making fabrics, like by hand, stretch from the stretch they make it. Like let's say there are these clusters who make ikat. Ikat you must be knowing, the work and weft they tie and dye. So there is a single ikat where you only tie dye your work, and weft is like plain. It creates pattern. But there is something called double ikat. There's a lot of mathematics in it. So you have a work and weft both separately tied and dyed. When they come together, they make solid patterns. And those can be very thin lines. So there is, you can Google it, there is a sari called patola. That sari takes, if I want to put an order, I'm in line for a year or 2 years.
Oh my God.
Wow.
It's very, very tough. So we have like a printed textiles, we have painted textile, we have hand embroidered textile, we have hand woven textile. And there is a lot in all of them. So when I say printed, it will be block printed, it will be kalamkari, it will be like different types of printings. Same goes with your dyeing, same goes with your weaving also, there are 1,000 types. Extra web, like warp based and very thin, very thick. I can go on and on.
Now I see, I'm hearing depth in when all the northern farmers were going on strike. I didn't really clue in about fabric and agriculture.
It's very
And I
much
was like,
agriculture
no,
activity.
and part of it bartering, of course, that would threaten the families even more so than with let's go internationally and import export or however.
And also the interesting thing is there are all generations who's been constantly working towards not saving, I would say, but making more contextual handmade textiles. So let's say my grandmother had certain pieces, the climate was different and the way they were using is different, but people migrated to cities, but the craft has to sustain, right? So they have changed the way of using that final product, but not the material, not the process. So for example, if I come to the city, instead of draping, I might use a bag or I might use a kurta, or so we kind of changed it, but not change the material, not change the way of making it. So there are two things happen here also. Earlier it was all locally made, locally consumed. So you have these weekly markets and people just sell and buy all materials, not only textiles. Then this whole export import started. So we have this big industry where we make by hand, and brands like Portugal or Western. Even I was working just before coming here with these brands. But because of these brands, the handmade is still there because there is a huge demand. The other side, there were a lot of young people like who have taken these initiatives to create these huge bazaar or markets in cities, in metro cities. So make in the village, but city has the capacity to buy. So there are seasonal markets. There
Oh
are
my
weekly
God, it must be
markets.
amazing.
They are so cool, and there are some of them are like crazy.
Oh my God.
I mean, you will. So what happened? Even a small kid get introduced to craft so early. They see and they appreciate. So yeah, I mean, so there are both the things happening. So that's how it is sustaining. So there is a demand, and
Because the population is so high, that seems like it should stay at least steady-ish with the two, because there's just so many people.
It will stay. It will stay. But other problem is challenges. Not problem, I would say. This trickling down of brands and the materials. So there is one image I have, my own grandmother's, a piece which is 90 years old, hand spun, hand woven, hand dyed, hand embroidered wool. Not even a single wool is there. It's wool, but not even a single wool is there. And in front of it, she's standing at the age of 89. Her skirt is digitally printed, synthetic fabric. Her blouse is acrylic, machine knitted. And we have this head covering, odni we call, that is again a cotton, but it's chemically dyed. So within her life cycle, she has changed this, saw this too. So the new generation, from my parents onwards, because they come from this office culture, and so they think there is a brand or there's a label to garment, which is good, and the handmade is not.
Exactly, the internet.
And the brands coming to your country so easily, and they're cheap. So handmade is expensive. So again, it's a quality versus quantity. So you invest in handmade. As I said, you can pass it on generation by generation. But that you can't.
That makes me think of the coffee industry in some countries where they export everything, and then the locals are only getting the coffee that's like the third grade, because they just have to survive, to pay all their everything. They're selling the highest quality, so they don't even get to drink.
That happened with the tea in India. So all the best tea comes to across the world, and what we get is the really lowest quality. And tea is the popular beverage over there everywhere. So yeah. So for them, if now when we talk about that, we have to invest in better quality and all of that, the people view handmade is so expensive, I don't want to buy it. But my point is, you buy one instead of 5 of those stupid t-shirts, and you make your own style, you create your own trend. But it's not easy for everyone to understand this fact, because eventually they're going to these corporates to work, and everyone is like decked up and dressed up, and they're like, oh, I bought this.
People don't want to stand out. They'll go with the blend. They'll want to blend with their class or the group or the trend.
Exactly. So there are all kind of things happening there. There are voices, there are people embracing. So I think so there's not many people, the scale is so big, I think so everyone will survive.
That culture though of like not wanting to buy one thing and wear it all the time is like, I feel like I live in a bubble, because I was listening to a podcast about reality TV a little while ago, and they were talking about like reality TV shows where you can buy the clothes like through your TV. And then they were talking about all these stats of like people wearing an item of clothing on average 2 times before they get rid of it. And I was like, who are those people? Like, I don't live in that world. I feel like I live in a bubble of people who like have the values that you're talking about. But I was really, I was really shocked to hear that, and that's such a heavy burden to have too. Imagine like having a cultural understanding that like if you wear a thing more than twice, you are out of style or you're poor or whatever. It's like that must be exhausting. Like I mean, I guess if you really like buying new clothes, then it's fun. And if you have a lot of money, but I was really surprised to hear some of those statistics and like hear about those like it's not even e-commerce, but is that like social media commerce? So, like
telemarketing.
Yeah, it's like tell me.
That idea of wearing clothes once, like that you're fashionable, it's the way to be fashionable.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I was so exhausted.
Yeah. And that's like not a world that I live in. Like in the world I live in, it's fashionable to buy one good thing and it's fashionable to men.
But those are very small communities
Yeah.
which we are, focused or looking into. Because we tend to look into them more, right?
Yeah.
Because you're seeking them. But eventually it's not like that.
Yeah.
And that's because the real problem is how the media twists things in capitalism, and women are supposed to be this image of beauty to relax the men after working. And so a woman is supposed to always have a different outfit on every day of work. And if she doesn't, then what does that mean? So I think it would be rebellious for a woman to wear similar clothes. Like I loved it. I seen this one documentary once, and this woman did an experiment, and she wore the same clothes. Maybe it was 2 outfits for a whole year. Probably find it. 360 days or whatever. 65 days.
Is it the one from
Same
Australia?
clothes. That's sounding familiar.
Heartbeat, sorry. Jen something. Her label is textile beat, like heartbeat. So even like after project transfer, so first year we made garments. So again we are accumulating more, in the wardrobe. So next year I was saying that we kind of came to mending and repair, whatever you have. Third year, like still what next? So sari is like a draped garment. So similarly, dhoti is like a pants, So you're not stitching, you're draping. Same fabric, you can drape in many ways. And sari, you can drape. There are 200 ways of draping sari. Literally.
Wow.
There are books on. So what I started doing, I call it meter clothing. Because meter is like the different meter of fabric I had. Because I go to these clusters and weavers and they're so nice. Let's get it. But I don't want to cut them because they're so nice. So I had fabric somehow like 4 meters, 5 meters, and saris mostly 6.5 or 7 meters. So there were 3 years I was just draping. So I haven't bought like before coming here. I went to like market after like 5 years of trying to buy something. So those 3 years I was just draping all the time. Same fabric I make a skirt, same fabric I make a dress. What my mood is, same fabric. Like I'm doing different things. So I'm kind of documenting also whether it is viable or not. Or whole day can you wear it or not? Or how uncomfortable or comfortable. Sari I know I'm comfortable, but if I'm making a dress with the knots, so I'm doing knots and pleats. There's no so when I in the beginning started, I started using cord just to put it together. And like this is also extra thing what I can do with the fabric. So I started doing knots. So it works well.
Yeah.
Like you can wear it as long as you want.
Wow.
Even doing physical,
Everything.
lots of physical.
Oh, and my whole point of draping anything, it should be friendly. I should not.
Yeah.
So that's my main agenda.
Yeah.
Draping, whatever I do.
That's so inspiring.
Yeah.
So there's so much to see.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that and the history of it as well in India. It's fascinating. We're coming close to the end of our time together, so if you'd like, I think we'll take a moment to just pause and stretch, because I always feel a little tight, hunched. My neck, my eyes, my fingers get a little sore, so just have a little stretch.
You know
Appreciate your
a
body
good
for.
fascia hand one, don't you?
Oh yeah, this is kind of a fascinating fascia exercise. What you'll do is you'll hold one arm out and with your other hand grab around your wrist, and you have to sort of put a good amount of pressure and pull your skin towards your body and then start twisting and moving your hand. And you'll feel this sort of Velcro of your fascia releasing from your bones. And I always feel a deep relief. It is a weird feeling. It's sort of a feeling that you don't often experience. Try switching.
You see, there's a lot of memory in fascia. So when you do move that, some people are like, it could shift another sensory instead of muscle. Yeah, I never, I'm a bit touchy with fascia.
And then I feel lighter. But just simple stretches will work. Give your neck a little love. Maybe roll your shoulders back. And I'd love it if we could go around the circle and maybe just hold up and share what it was that we were working on and say something about it. Maybe it's the technique you used or something that you kind of have been mulling over. Do you want to start?
I was working on my yellow socks. I had many snagged holes. I usually go with colors that I see lying around, so it's pretty arbitrary. But I'm really excited to wear these. They're my favorite yellow pair.
Great. And you'll see with socks, when you've mended socks, typically the mend sticks up a little bit, but it'll wear, and so it'll start to reintegrate into the fabric of the sock. But it might feel dimensional in the first few uses.
So yeah, I got to do two things. Each side I had just made a hole, and I was taught by Selina how to do a blanket stitch. So I did the two holes. That's nice. And then I was able to just tack each square and then tie it in a knot and add the buttons.
Is there something in here?
Yeah, it's that kind of, it's that Japanese, I don't know how to pronounce it, that Japanese art, you just kind of like fold anything in.
Right.
So it's just, you put your something in, then you put one corner, you put the other corner, and then you just carry it. And then you added buttons, so that was another dimension to it. But yeah,
That's great.
Portable bag. And then if I want, at some point, I can easily undo those stitches and still use the full fabric.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Kind of like we also call something similar as a kurti. So in India, it's very common. Any kind of weight they carry in these bags. So there are square pieces, and you do one knot and second knot and create the bag out. So even for grocery going for it, you don't have it. Locally also, like a lot of people.
Let's see.
So Japanese and our things somewhere overlap many.
Yeah. Yeah. Some wonderful, beautiful mend.
I don't know, when I went there, I was looking at colors and kind of these were somewhere together. But it's a nice family.
Yeah.
Like it also reminds me India a lot. I tend to see a lot of colors there, and here I don't see much. So that's the first. I begin with, I wanted to do bottom left first, running stitch, but I did 2 stitches of this chain stitch and I kind of like
Went with it, yeah.
Let's do that. And then it's looking like a crochet now, and it has this.
Can we see what it looks like on the other side? Okay,
Yeah, looks
lovely.
nice.
You get the underbelly of the orange color. Yeah, that's great.
Lovely.
Great job.
I finished my first
Oh.
row of stitches
Well
on the cuff, so
done.
this is like the basic, and then I'm gonna use another glue that's easy. I like the idea of it being mostly invisible, but I also want the back is, I wasn't looking at the back, and I kind of wish I had been. So I'd like to have some more color on the back so that if I roll up my sleeve, it looks okay. Because I'm not totally happy with how the back turned out, but I could also put a patch over that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So why did you sew that fabric on there?
Just to give it some stability, because
Oh.
you can kind of see the fabric through there. There's this hole was so big that Selina suggested there being like a, what do you call it, like a
Reinforcing.
yeah. So
Oh, good idea.
Done a great job.
Yeah.
thanks.
Maybe do more stitches of this and do this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think you could use the fabric to
To just cover up
close
the back.
it, and you could probably just do the edge.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then
Yeah.
the back will be tidy, and the front will still be
Yeah.
invisible.
There's something called Sujini stitch. Sujini is the name of the embroidery. When they do it like this, they're very intense stitches. It looks good and good.
How are your dog socks coming along?
Dog socks, I think this one's done. This one was the least damaged
Wow.
out of all of them.
Wow, you're fast.
Got the ears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've
That's
done,
amazing work that you've done.
done part of the heel and I've done most of the toe.
Like rebuilt the
Yeah.
I mean, the problem is that she gives these to me when there's holes in them. They're so much easier to fix when they're just thin.
Yeah.
So this one didn't have any holes, so I've
Okay.
Oh,
sort of anticipated where the next holes are going to be.
Right.
wow.
But I think I finished this one.
So did you just knit on top of knitting? So it's double knitting?
I followed the thread with a needle,
Yeah.
so it mimics the knit stitches. And then you can see, actually, on this heel, well, you can't see, that's sort of the point. There's a whole section that I've done previously that's blended in completely.
And I love that over time that white thread will slowly change color and blend with the sock.
I didn't know that was going to happen, so
Yeah.
it's really nice to come back to it and not be able to see where I fix things, except for the fact that this hasn't worn through again, which goes to show that like the nylon has done its work.
Yeah.
As much as I don't like using nylon because there's microplastics out there, but
Yeah, that's
I
great.
haven't found an equivalent yet.
Yeah.
For sock yarn.
Do you see the inside?
No, wool wears through very quickly.
Do you see the inside of the work?
So because this is 100% wool, it's worn through really quick.
Wow, amazing.
So I have a lot of ends to weave in.
Great.
So with the ends, you can pick up where you left off and just kind of go back through following your stitch all the way till the end rather than snipping it off, because if you snip it, it's more likely to unravel.
Yeah, I've done the same towards the end. You see, all the yarns are like.
Yeah.
Great.
Well done.
This was extra yarn, so I just got.
Exactly, that's perfect. Yeah. Well, my little darns have come to a close as well. You can see where they are from the dirtiness of this sock too. I have some white, some red, whatever thread was lying around. So those little holes are now fixed, but it's true that the socks are thinning. In some areas, when you stretch them, you can see the thinned threads. So those are the areas that are more likely to unravel or fall into disrepair.
Yeah.
So that's something to keep in mind.
Can't keep up with holy socks.
No.
Can you?
No.
No, especially with summer because you need a thin sock. But
Yeah.
no, good quality thin socks are. Do they exist?
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all so much.
Thank you.
This has been a pleasure. it's really nice to talk textiles, to talk shop, and share techniques and get to know new ones. Yeah, this is a real pleasure. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
That tool's been there for so long and I've never fixed it.
And thank you for this.
Yeah, you should look them up. They've got some really interesting projects. Yeah. Great. Please do. We can help you with that.
And socks. It's essentially knitting. I'm knitting, but with a needle and thread instead of the needles.